Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at the happiness equation and how we can use this magical little formula to bring more happiness to our lives. So let's jump in. Firstly, who is Mo Gawdat? Mo is the guy who created the happiness equation, and if you've not heard of Mo before, he was born and raised in Egypt and reached an astronomical level of success at a very young age. Mo had a 30-year career in tech and served as Chief Business Officer at Google X, which is described as Google's moonshot factory of innovation. In simple terms, Google X is the part of Google that tries to solve humanity's largest problems, mainly by inventing crazy new technologies, such as self-driving cars and internet balloons. But for the purposes of this video, all we need to know is that Mo was a very successful businessman for one of the largest companies in the world. He had more money than he could possibly spend, and he tells the story of how if he ever fancied having more money, all he had to do was work for a few days on the stock exchange and he could earn the money to buy whatever he wanted. And more importantly than that, he also had a beautiful family. But the thing is, Mo wasn't happy. Despite all of his success, he wasn't satisfied with his life. How did he tackle the problem? Mo decided to tackle the problem in the same way that an engineer would. He took as many arbitrary points of data from his life from when he felt happy and tried to find what was common between them. Hence, how he came up with the happiness equation, which we'll take a look at a bit later. Mo also describes how his son Ali intuitively knew so much about how to be happy from such a young age. And even when Ali was a small child, Mo would learn so much from his son about how to become happier. And once Mo started utilising what he had learnt, his happiness could not be dented. As a Middle Eastern man who had to travel to and from America a lot, he retells the story of how he would be randomly checked every so often and treated in not the friendliest of manners, shall we say. Yet despite all of this, his happiness stayed solid. And then something tragic happened. Mo's son Ali lost his life at the young age of 21. And to make matters worse, this was due to 5 consecutive mistakes being made during a routine operation in the hospital. And as you could imagine, this life-changing event put Mo's happiness equation to the test. He soon realised that nothing that he could do would be able to bring his son Ali back, so he had 2 choices. Number 1, he could spend the rest of his life grieving the death of his son. Or number 2, he could honour his son by sharing what he had learned in his own personal search for happiness, a lot of which his son Ali had taught him. Luckily for us, Mo showed his strength and courage by choosing the second option. On a podcast, I listened to Mo retell the emotional story of how, shortly after Ali's passing, Mo's daughter came to him and told him about how a couple of weeks ago, Ali called her to tell her about a dream he had where he dreamt that he was everywhere and a part of everyone, and that it felt so amazing that he didn't want to be back in his body. This dream of Ali's ignited Mo's 1 billion happy mission, where he aims to help 1 billion people become happier by sharing everything that he learnt about happiness, from his research and everything that his son Ali had taught him also. And in this way, Ali's wisdom will spread throughout the world, just like Ali's dream where he felt that he was a part of everyone in the world. Hashtag 1 billion happy. The hashtag 1 billion happy movement that Mo started has 3 steps. Number 1, make happiness your first priority and recognise that happiness is your birthright. Number 2, invest in happiness by exploring the happiness library for free, which can be found at 1billionhappy.org, or by reading Solve for Happy, which is the book that Mo wrote to share his findings. And number 3, tell 2 people about the message that you have learnt, who will tell 2 people, who will tell 2 people, etc, etc. This would lead to exponential growth and shows how the movement can reach 1 billion people. So, what actually is the happiness equation? It turns out that happiness is actually very predictable. And if you think back to all of the times when you were happy, there is one commonality that runs through all of them, so much so that this can be expressed in a mathematical equation. And the equation is as follows. Happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between your perception of the events of your life and your expectation of how life should behave. A good example of this is the rain, which I'm quite familiar with because I live in the UK. If you're an avid gardener and your plants are on the brink of dehydration, then a day full of rainfall would be considered a blessing. Whereas if you're heading to the beach with all your friends, the rain is going to dampen your mood. In the first example involving the garden, You expected life to give you a bit of rainfall to help the old garden out, and this happened. So you're pretty happy. Whereas in the second example, you expected life to give you a bit of sunshine so that you could enjoy the beach. And this didn't happen, so you're not very happy. Therefore, it's not the rain that dictates your happiness, it's your expectation of the world. Okay, another angle that we can look at this from is this. Imagine a rich businessman. He's in one of the finest restaurants in the world, and he's paid an exorbitant amount of money to experience this restaurant because it has 3 Michelin stars. And then, his food comes out, but his lobster isn't quite hot enough. He gets really upset, starts asking for the chef's head, and ultimately has a horrible evening. But compare this to a camping trip that you go on with the boys. Now, we all have that one unreliable friend, and unfortunately, he was left with the responsibility of bringing the food for the trip. So you get to your campsite in the middle of nowhere, set up your tents, and lo and behold, you discover that your buddy has forgotten to bring the food for the evening. At this point, morale in the campsite is at an all-time low. But then, another one of your friends reveals that he's got a stash of chocolate in his bag, which he was saving for in case he got hungry during the night. So, you all huddle around the campfire, all enjoying the chocolate, and the morale is boosted, and you all have a great night. So, if we step back for a second, the rich businessman was served much better food than the chocolate that the boys had on the camping trip. Yet, the boys were much happier because their expectation was that they would be going hungry for the night. Whereas the businessman expected to be served the best food of his life. And this right here is the crucial part. It's not the event that makes us unhappy, it's the way that we think about it that does. So, is the answer to lower your expectations in life? Well, yes, in a way, but not in a doom and gloom way. If you expect luxury cars and the latest tech gadgets to make you happy, then you will be disappointed, because your expectation will fall short of reality. But if you decide to focus your attention and energy on being grateful for the things that you do have in your life, and you don't expect everything in life to always go your way, and you're open to the idea that sometimes bad things might happen, then you will live your life with so much more contentment. The happiness flowchart. Another great thing that I learned from Mo Gawdat is that our brains are the key to the solution. You see, unhappiness is an emotion, and emotions are triggered by thoughts. So find the thought that triggered your unhappiness, and then follow the happiness flowchart, which goes like this. Number 1, is the thought true? If it's not true, then cool, you can drop it. If it is true, then ask yourself. Number 2, can I do something about it? If you can do something about it, then do that thing. If not, ask yourself. Number 3, can I accept it and do something to make life better despite its presence? If we use the death of Mo's son Ali as an example, Mo talks about how he would have thoughts such as, why did I take Ali to that specific hospital? If I'd have taken Ali to a different hospital, those surgical mistakes would never have happened and he would still be here with me today. These intrusive thoughts, of course, don't help much on the happiness front. So Mo would go through each step in the happiness flowchart. Step 1. Is the thought true? Yes, it is true that if Mo would have gone to a different hospital, the chances are that Ali would not have died that day. Step 2. Can I do something about it? Unfortunately, it's in the past and can't be undone. So moving on to step 3. Can I accept it and do something to make life better despite its presence? Yes, which is exactly what Mo has done. He's used the death of his son Ali as fuel to propel him on the mission to make 1 billion people happier. And in closing, I'd like to finish this video by sharing a quote that Ali was fond of. So fond, in fact, that he had it tattooed onto his skin. The quote goes as follows. The gravity of the battle means nothing to those at peace. There are lots of battles that each one of us faces, because life can throw all sorts of things your way, but to work towards cultivating practices that bring peace to your life, and hopefully like Mo, you too will find that happiness can be reached despite the battles. And that's all from me, guys. If you'd like to support the channel, then please smash the like button and hit subscribe. Also, drop me a comment down below. Let me know one thing that you're going to change in your life to try and bring more happiness. I'll pop some great links into the description box below, including a link to Mo Gawdat's book, Solve for Happy, and to a great podcast that Mo did with Stephen Bartlett, who runs a phenomenal podcast called The Diary of a CEO. So check those out if they take your fancy. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.